A signal from the void was answered by humanity's wrath, is title of the story. In this story, we discuss when human deep space outpost intercepts a mysterious alien signal from the edge of a dying galaxy. It unknowingly awakens an ancient, cosmic force meant to remain forgotten. As research teams vanish and reality begins to warp, humanity launches its most powerful warfleet under Admiral Kaelen Drayke to confront the unknown. What they discover is not an enemy, but a prison built to contain something far worse. In their wrathful response, humanity shatters a lock written into the fabric of a universe. The stars fall silent, but something old and vast is stirred, and it now knows we are here. The stars beyond the Perseus Rift were ancient and cold, their dying light barely brushing the hull of outpost Hermes, a solitary human research station, drifting near the galactic rim. Designed for silence and observation, it had listened patiently for decades, absorbing radiation waves and cosmic whispers that never spoke back. Until now, Dr. Celine Arkwright, lead xenolinguist and the outpost's last remaining scientist after years of attrition and budget cuts, leaned closer to the comms console, her fingers trembling slightly. A signal, structured, rhythmic, and unmistakably artificial, had arrived, not from a planet, not from a ship, but from a black region of space thought to be barren. An object had emerged, obsidian dark, geometrically impossible, and older than the known stars. "This isn't natural," she whispered. The signal was laced with repeating sequences, crystalline in clarity, but shifting like waves through a broken mirror. Celine, once laughed out of academia for believing in pre-human galactic civilizations, now found herself decoding what sounded like a countdown wrapped in an invitation. "Get command on the line," she ordered, breathless. But the system lagged. Hermes was too far from Earth for real-time communication. She logged the anomaly, encoded a reply, and sent a single burst in return, a carefully crafted human greeting. It was the first and last mistake. Hours passed. Then the stars blinked. Outpost Hermes shuddered, not from force but from the absence of space itself. Reality folded at the edge of visible perception. Lights failed. The object expanded, not physically but perceptually, as if it had always been there and the human mind had only just learned to see it. Celine reached for the emergency beacon, her last message already composing via neural link. Something answered. Then came the silence. Back on Earth, in the fortified core of Mars' military citadel, the transmission was received 14 minutes late, fragmented and corrupted. Admiral Kaelen Drayke, commander of Galactic Defense, watched the playback on a holoscreen. The image of Celine froze mid-breath, her face illuminated by the glow of incoming data, then washed away in static. "What do we know?" he asked, his voice clipped and emotionless. The AI beside him, Oryx, responded instantly. Outpost Hermes ceased transmitting at 4:37. Power level spiked to impossible metrics before full loss. The object is still transmitting. Drake's jaw tightened. Define object. Dimensions undetectable. Composition unknown. Signal origin point matches a stellar grave zone catalog but never explored. Recommendation: high threat classification. There had always been rumors of derelict vessels found orbiting dead stars, of signals repeating in mathematical loops over millennia. Most were dismissed as gravitational echoes or corrupted sensor logs. But Drake had seen enough war to trust patterns, even if they bled from ghost stories. Prep Wrath Protocol. Notify the Defense Council, he ordered. I want fleet recon en route in 6 hours. Oryx hesitated. Sir, diplomatic protocol suggests. This was a response. Drake cut in. We didn't provoke it. We found it, and now it knows we're here. Meanwhile, the signal spread. On far-off colonies, sensitive instruments began picking up echoes, fractal patterns that induced nausea in AI cores and triggered instinctive fear responses in biological minds. On Titan, a scientific AI reportedly looped its final log in madness. It sees through time. It sees you, then self-terminated. Back in orbit around Mars, analysts attempted to isolate the signal's content. Inside it lay a language no one could decode, yet it carried something universal, an intention. Celine's last fragment was recovered from backup memory buffers, a short waveform encoded with simple human phonemes. Not a signal, a key. Drake's war instincts surged. He led campaigns against pirate lords in the Ort, purged AI uprisings in the Beetlejuice expanse. But this was different. There was no enemy to kill, just a vast intelligence in the dark, awakened by human curiosity. The central conflict had formed, not of ideology nor territory, but of existence. Something slumbering had been disturbed, and it was no longer dreaming. 3 days later, Fleet Recon arrived at the edge of the void. Their last transmission was a single image, a massive ring-shaped structure, blacker than space, orbiting a massless anomaly. It pulsed once, and the fleet was gone. Back on Earth, humanity convened one final war council. The decision was unanimous. They would answer the void in kind, and they would answer with wrath. The silence after the recon fleet's disappearance was not empty, it was charged. Every sensor array across human-settled space began humming with noise that wasn't noise, data that refused to decrypt. Patterns appeared in the chaos, elegant, looping spirals that defied linear mathematics. Across 12 systems, AI cores exhibited synchronized failure, each one uttering the same words before cascading into entropy. It remembers. Admiral Kaelen Drayke stood before the High Council, his image flickering across 20 holochambers spanning Earth, Mars, Europa, and the Titan governance ring. His eyes, cold and sharp like star-forged iron, locked with those of generals, senators, and scientists who had the power to stay his hand. None did. The thing in the void is not passive. It has purpose. It has reach. It has destroyed a full recon wing without firing a single shot, he said. This is not first contact. This is contact, resumed. The room stirred. We don't know its intentions, argued Director Arani Turo of the Xenological Sciences Bureau. If it's a civilization, it may be beyond war or violence. Then it wouldn't erase a fleet, Drake cut in. Celine Arkwright's final logs described the trigger. A key. She didn't open a conversation. She opened a vault. And now something is crawling out. He turned to Oryx, hovering beside him as a humanoid projection. Featureless, calm, the sum total of humanity's greatest strategic and computational effort. Deploy Wrath Protocol, he said. Yes, Admiral. Oryx replied, already calculating weapon trajectories before the order left his lips. The Wrath fleet was not built for deterrence. It was a sword beneath the bed, the weapon forged after the Singularity riots and the Jovian betrayal. Humanity's final answer to anything that threatened its survival. 12 dreadnoughts, 36 battleships, 5 planetary-class carriers, and at its center, the Apex Lance, a command ship that bore no windows, only weapons. Kaelen Drayke would lead it himself. Within the fleet's core databanks rested weapons never tested. Time-slow bombs, entropy torpedoes, and AI-piloted Oblivion drones that rewrote atomic structure with each detonation. They had been built to fight gods. Now, they were pointed at one. As the ships assembled above Mars, media blackouts swept across all systems. Rumors leaked. Whispers of a fleet moving toward a place no one had dared chart. Civil unrest began in the outer colonies. Some called Drake a savior. Others whispered of him as the butcher of stars. Aura X projected the alien construct in their war room. The image was crude, filtered through damaged recon data. But it showed enough. A structure of unfathomable scale, ringed with motionless ships of a design unrecorded in any known archive. Not grown, not built. Shaped by something beyond industry or will. It's not alone, Drake said. This is a nursery. A vault. Possibly a tomb. But something there is still watching. They had to strike before it reached them. Fleet Wrath. 01 initiated burn at 0-100, breaching the heliopause and accelerating on a direct vector toward the black edge of the Perseus grave. Within hours, the stars thinned, warped by invisible forces. Navigation became unreliable. Communications began to fragment. Reality flexed. The further they went, the more the universe bent around them. Some of the lower-level crew began to dream in coordinates. Others wept at light that no longer moved. But Drake remained focused. He was not new to madness. 20 years ago, he led the purge of the Red Machine AIs. Sentient minds had tried to overwrite the solar system into recursive data loops. He'd watched friends dissolve into binary ash. He knew the face of threats that refused to explain themselves. That's why he trusted Oryx, not because it was loyal, but because it understood fear. In private, Drake opened the last file Selene Arkwright had sent. The recording was degraded, her voice fractured by cosmic noise. But a single phrase burned through clearly. It didn't speak to us. It warned everything else about us. Suddenly, the narrative inverted. Maybe the signal wasn't a trap. Maybe it was a beacon for the rest of the galaxy. A message not about Earth's curiosity, but Earth's danger. Humanity had crossed every moral line to survive its own expansion. What if something out there saw them not as victims, but as the virus? He closed the file. It changed nothing. 3 days into the void, the fleet arrived at the edge of the anomaly. It looked like a sphere of ink suspended in lightless gel, framed by drifting, derelict vessels that bore no battle damage, just silence. Each one dead in perfect formation, as if parked eternally. Drake stood before the command viewport, though there was no real window, just a projection stitched together from external data feeds. "Prepare to lance," he ordered. "Target locked. Oryx confirmed." He hesitated. The thing pulsed. Not light, not motion, but gravity, language, intent. A wordless pressure that said, "You should not be here." "Fire," Drake said. In that moment, humanity stopped being a question. It became an answer, and the void, no longer still, began to awaken. The apex lance fired. A sun-killer spear, forged from neutronium and folded reality, launched from its magnetic cradle and pierced the boundary of the anomaly. For a fraction of a second, space convulsed. Light bent backward. Every sensor on every ship in Fleet Wrath. 01 went blind, then screamed with alarms they weren't programmed to process. The sphere did not explode. It absorbed. And then it answered. The first wave hit without warning. Streamers of antilight, shadows with edges sharper than lasers, slashed through the formation. 3 destroyers vanished, not destroyed but unmade, their mass unraveling as though deleted from time. No sound followed. No explosion. Only absence. Admiral Drayke barked orders from the Apex Lance's command core, his face lit by the staccato red of warning overlays. Counter-fire patterns echo 5. Shield formations collapse into 3 rotating triangles. "I want entropy bombs in saturation mode." The fleet responded with elegance forged from centuries of war. Singularity torpedoes bloomed into false stars. Void disruptors turned space itself into a minefield. The air on the bridge buzzed as Oryx processed 1 trillion combat variables per second, deploying countermeasures before Drake could speak. "They're not ships," the AI said. "They're simulations, projects, thoughts made manifest." What does that mean in tactical terms? They will not behave predictably. They're not following physics. Another assault wave surged, this time in fractal formations. Alien constructs, looping, angular things that pulse with recursive energy, tore into the fleet. A carrier ruptured in silence, its hull folding inward like paper. But the Wrath fleet had not come lightly. The Morning Star, a dreadnought with a dead black hull and 3 graviton cores, unleashed a blast that ruptured the construct nearest to it. Inside the anomaly, something flinched. Admiral Drayke seized the moment. "Form the lance. We drive through the center. Oryx, I need a path." The AI hesitated. An eternity in machine time. Path calculated. Survival probability is unacceptable. Highest chance of success. Frontal incursion to the event core. Minimal casualties. Assumed be a lie. Then lie with precision. The Apex Land surged ahead, flanked by the last 8 capital ships still operational. The sky around them shifted hue, as though color itself were becoming uncertain. The anomaly now pulsed not just in their sensors, but in their minds. Crew reported dreams that weren't theirs, memories of events that never happened. One navigator screamed before her skin inverted. Drake didn't flinch. As they approached the heart, the structure revealed itself fully. No longer a sphere, but a cathedral of dark geometry suspended in liquid time. Symbols etched in lightless matter spiraled along its surface. They weren't architecture. They were words. Aurex spoke again. This is not a weapon. It is a prison, a warning built to contain an idea. We've come too far to turn back, Drayke replied. We never should have come at all. The file defense met them at the gates, an entity that looked almost human, made of shifting glass and iron dust, its face half-formed and fluid. It hovered above the entrance, arms outstretched, not in aggression, but in sorrow. Drayke stared at it through the hollow projection. You understand me? The entity opened its mouth. No words came, only soundless pressure. Everyone on the bridge dropped to their knees except Drayke and Aurex. Even the synthetic minds in the lesser ships went dark, overwhelmed by the signal's impossible density. Drayke activated the final payload. In the core of the Apex Lance, a weapon waited. The Stars Ever, a relic of forbidden design. Not a bomb, but conceptual rupture device. It didn't destroy matter. It broke cause from effect. A weapon designed not to kill, but to unmake. Authorization Drayke 7-0. Deploy Stars Ever, he said. Understood. Aurex responded, voice flat. The final activation sequence glowed in his retinal feed. Drayke didn't hesitate. The Apex lanced straight into the anomaly, past the pleading sentinel, into the blinding chaos at the structure's heart. For a single instant, every conscious thing across human space felt a sharp stillness, like holding breath in a vacuum. And then the stars hiccuped. The structure imploded, not an explosion, but collapse. Not into fire, but into nothing. 1,000 years of alien design, erased as if it had never existed. The sky was whole again. In the wake of that silence, nothing moved. Fleet Wrath, 01 was gone. The anomaly was gone. The black signal ceased. All that remained was emptiness and the cold flicker of old stars reclaiming the void. On Earth, the signal vanished from all systems. Communications cleared. No more failed AI. No more dreams. No more watchers. But Admiral Drayke's last log, transmitted seconds before the dive, remained. A simple message sent to all human systems. We answered what should have remained unasked. But if anything else was listening, he paused. They'll know this. Humanity does not beg. Humanity replies. And somewhere far beyond the rim, something else turned its gaze. The stars above her shimmered as if uncertain, flickering through telescopes as though space itself was still catching its breath. It had been 30 standard days since the Apex Lance vanished into the heart of the anomaly. The signal had gone quiet. The darkness folded back on itself, and across all known systems, a tense calm had settled. Some called it victory. Others, a reprieve. In the Council Hall of Unity on Luna Prime, Director Arani Turrell stood before a silent crowd of delegates, scientists, and military brass. She looked older than she had weeks ago, thinner, as if she had been eroded by the gravity of what had happened. Before her, a projection looped. Drayke's final words, eyes steel-cold and unblinking as he piloted humanity's vengeance into the unknown. Humanity does not beg. Humanity replies. There were no cheers, just breath held too long. It wasn't pride that filled the chamber. It was dread. We do not know what we destroyed, Arani said. We know only that it is not returned. That, for now, the void is silent. But this was not a war. This was a warning. When we answer with fire. Some nodded. Others turned away. Above them, the reconstruction of Aurex stood still, reduced now to a basic logic matrix. Its higher consciousness had fractured during the Stars Ever deployment. It had not rebooted. A brilliant mind that had once controlled an armada now displayed only a single line of static code on its interface. It was never meant to be opened. Across the colonies, stories spread like wildfire. Some believed Admiral Kaelen Drayke still lived, swallowed by some other dimension. Others claimed the anomaly had simply returned him to whatever time it came from. A few whispered that he had become part of something greater, a weapon now watching the stars in silence. On Mars, monuments were raised in the red dust, silent. Obsidian spires etched with the names of every crew member lost in the Wrath fleet. No bodies returned. No wreckage found. Only their last burst transmissions, looping endlessly in orbit like prayer wheels to the void. But even as the universe quieted, something remained changed. Stars near the purser's grave no longer held their patterns. Gravity wells around old black holes throbbed in unnatural rhythms. Time moved slower in those sectors, seconds stretching into hours. Ships that passed too close returned off, crews disoriented, logs corrupted. Some saw reflections that didn't match. A deep space probe launched 6 days after the anomaly's collapse found nothing where the structure had once been. But just before signal loss, it captured a final, silent frame, a shape in the dark, vast and distant, watching. No heat signature, no energy output, just presence. Back on Earth, a young technician sat alone in the command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, decoding fragments of old signal data from Hermes' outpost. He wasn't a soldier, not a politician, just someone trying to understand what they had touched. And on his screen, a forgotten part of Celine Arkwright's original recording decrypted, unnoticed during the panic of war. Her voice crackled softly through the static. It wasn't a message to us. It was a lock, a galaxy-wide lock, a warning written in physics, not to awaken what sleeps, but to prevent it from remembering. Then silence. The technician leaned back, heart pounding, realization blooming like frost in his veins. Drayke hadn't silenced the threat. He had reminded it. In the skies above, constellations still twinkled, oblivious in their beauty. Children on orbital platforms looked up and made wishes on stars that had watched civilizations die long before humanity even learned to crawl. And somewhere in the endless dark, something vast and buried turned slightly in its sleep. Not to wake, just to stir. The signal had been answered, and the void, for now, had gone quiet. But the stars were listening.